If you're someone who never posts photos online, no selfies, no updates, no trace of your personal life, you've probably been told you're weird, antisocial, maybe even hiding something. But you're not weird, you're not hiding, and you're definitely not antisocial. You're actually doing something that most people on social media can't. Social media is a 24/7 performance stage. Every scroll is a spotlight. Every post is a performance. Every like is applause. And while everyone else is stepping forward into that light, curating moments, rehearsing smiles, editing reality into something more acceptable, you quietly walk toward the exit door. And here's what's interesting. Psychology says the reason you did that goes much deeper than you think. For some of you, it didn't even begin with social media. It started long before that world ever existed. While most people curate their online image like it's a second job, you chose privacy. And that's not cold, that's clear. Psychologists call this a high privacy orientation, a pattern often seen in people who think before they act, people who weigh consequences, people who instinctively protect what matters. Research has shown that individuals high in conscientiousness tend to be more protective of their personal information online. They don't share impulsively. They don't expose casually. They filter carefully. It's not a decision you suddenly made one day. It's a tendency that grew quietly over time. It's part of how you see the world. So when someone asks, "Why don't you ever post anything?" what they're really asking, whether they realize it or not, is, why don't you participate in the same attention economy that I do? And here's the truth. You don't owe them an explanation. You're not invisible. You're intentional. But privacy is only the surface layer. Underneath it, something deeper is happening. Back in the 1990s, psychologist Jennifer Campbell introduced something called the self-concept clarity scale. And what she discovered was simple but powerful. People who have a clear sense of who they are don't constantly look outside themselves for confirmation. They don't need mirrors everywhere they go. Think of it this way. Most people use social media like a mirror. They post something, then wait. They wait for likes, for comments, for reactions that reflect something back to them. A version of themselves, approved by others. You don't live like that. You don't need a mirror. You already have a window. Instead of constantly checking your reflection, you look outward. You observe. You take things in. You notice patterns. You listen more than you broadcast. You move through spaces without needing to announce your presence. That doesn't mean you don't care what people think. It means your identity isn't built on what people think. And honestly, that kind of inner clarity is far rarer than most people realize. And it goes even deeper than identity, because understanding who you are is one thing. But how you feel about who you are, that's something else entirely. Psychologists often talk about two different types of self-esteem: fragile self-esteem and secure self-esteem. On the surface, they can look similar. Both people may appear confident. Both may function well in daily life. But underneath, the difference is massive. Fragile self-esteem needs feeding. It depends on reactions, validation, approval. It's like a battery that constantly drains and needs to be recharged by attention. A compliment helps. A like helps. A positive comment helps. But the silence that follows can feel loud. Secure self-esteem is different. Secure self-esteem stands on its own. It doesn't collapse when the room goes quiet. It doesn't panic when nobody reacts. It doesn't need applause to feel complete. And here's something that might surprise you. Many people assume that avoiding social media means insecurity, that staying private means you're afraid of judgment. But in many cases, the opposite is true. When your sense of self is already steady, social media becomes optional, not essential. You're not avoiding the stage because you're afraid of the spotlight. You're stepping off the stage because you don't need it to exist. But here's where the story takes an important turn. Everything I've said so far may feel true. It may resonate. It may feel like someone finally put words to something you've sensed for years. But it's not the whole truth, because not everyone who avoids posting does it from strength. Some do it from protection. Someone once shared a comment that stayed with me long after I read it. They wrote, "I stopped posting photos 3 years ago. Not because I found peace, but because every time I saw my own face on screen, I remembered every joke my classmates made about how I looked." Read that again. Not peace, memory. Not privacy, pain. And suddenly, the same behavior looks completely different. Because not posting from confidence creates a boundary. Not posting from shame builds a wall. And those two things may look identical from the outside, but inside, they are worlds apart. A boundary is flexible. It protects without isolating. It allows connection, but on your terms. A wall is rigid. It hides. It blocks. It keeps the world out, but it also keeps you locked in. So here's the question that matters more than any theory. Are you choosing privacy? Or are you avoiding visibility? That question isn't meant to judge you. It's meant to reveal something. Because sometimes the strongest thing you can do is admit that what looks like strength on the outside might actually be protection on the inside. And recognizing that difference, not hiding from it, is where real awareness begins. And once you begin asking that question honestly, something else starts to surface. Not just what you do now, but where it all began. Because many of the ways we protect ourselves today were learned long before we had the language to explain them. Psychologist Carl Rogers believed that much of our relationship with visibility begins in childhood. He called it conditions of worth. The idea that love, attention, or approval were sometimes tied to how well we performed, how we behaved, or how acceptable we appeared. Maybe you grew up in a home where praise came rarely, but criticism came quickly. Not cruel, just constant enough to make you careful. Careful about how you spoke. Careful about how you looked. Careful about how much of yourself you showed. Or maybe you became the dependable one, the responsible one, the quiet observer who learned early that your role was to support others, not to take center stage yourself. And slowly, without realizing it, visibility began to feel risky. Exposure began to feel costly. So you learned to keep parts of yourself private. Not because you lacked confidence, but because somewhere along the way, being seen felt like something that had to be earned. Rogers described something else that matters here. He called it the internal locus of evaluation. A simple but powerful shift. It means measuring your worth by your own standards, not by the reactions of the crowd. And that idea matters now more than ever, because the world you're living in today runs on comparison. Back in 1954, psychologist Leon Festinger introduced what became known as social comparison theory. The idea that humans naturally measure themselves against others. But social media didn't just encourage comparison. It industrialized it. It turned it into a non-stop loop where every scroll invites you to measure, adjust, and doubt. A highlight reel becomes a measuring stick. A stranger's moment becomes your quiet insecurity. But here's the part most people never realize. You stepping back from that loop isn't withdrawal. It's awareness. It's choosing not to live inside a system designed to keep you questioning your own worth. And that changes everything. Because in a world that rewards constant visibility, choosing privacy is not silence. It's strategy. It's not absence. It's intention. It's not hiding. It's knowing that your value does not increase just because more people are watching. So if you've ever felt different for staying quiet online, maybe the real question isn't why you don't post. Maybe the real question is why so many people feel they have to. And if something in this message felt uncomfortably familiar, take a moment and be honest with yourself. When did you first realize you didn't need the spotlight to feel whole? Drop that moment in the comments. Not for validation, but for reflection. And if this gave words to something you've felt but never fully understood, subscribe and stay close. Because the more we name these patterns, the less control they have over us. Quiet doesn't mean invisible.